With Graybeard gone, Teo felt a new sense of emptiness. He spent much of his time drawing mammoths and bison and rhinos in Graybeard's little cavern. Each evening he stood on top of the cliff, scanning the valley, waiting for the old man to return. As the days passed and Graybeard did not show up, the boy became impatient. Why does he not come back? He thought. He always keeps his word. Maybe something's wrong. He considered going to find him, but he knew he couldn't cross the river into the lands of the other people. Each day the boy waited with growing concern. Then, one morning down in the slough, Ram growled, and Teo looked up to see Graybeard standing in the middle of the glade, as if he had just come out of the earth. He had his flint-tipped spear with him, and in his hand, and he carried his shoulder blade of a horse strapped to his back. Teo hurried towards him, an expression of joy and relief in his eyes. I'm so happy to see you, old man. It's been a long time, been a long, lonely, lonely time. Graybeard nodded. There are many places I must go. I don't walk as fast as I used to, 'cause I'm an old man. Then he coughed. It wasn't a COVID cough, though. It was a regular cough, and he passed his shaky hand across his brow. And Teo winced. He saw his worn face, his pinched cheekbones. He was worried. He knew the old man would not want him to show concern. The cave's ready, Teo said. First you must rest and eat. He took some dried meat and some fish from his leather pouch, and he sat down with their backs against an old red oak and ate their meal. And Teo wondered if GB had remembered his promise. When they were done, they started out across the valley. Graybeard had to stop many times, poking around in the stream bed and gravel banks with the shaft of his spear, searching. Then he found what he was looking for. He picked up a stick and dug out a handful of bright red earth. Here, as he poured it into an empty leather sack. This will make really good red paint. Now we must go find yellows and whites. I have yellow clay, said Teo. The old man did remember. Good. We'll need to dig up some limestone powder near the foot of the cliffs. That'll mix well for the lighter colors. When they had all red, white, and yellow earth they needed, they went up to the top of the cliff using the easy path that Graybeard had found. They reached the tunnel to the hidden cave and removed the corner of the branches to let in the sunlight. In the cave, Graybeard sat on the ground and Teo squatted beside him. The old man poured some of the red earth into one of the saucer-shaped rocks that Teo had collected. Then, using a smooth round stone, he began grinding it into a fine powder. When it was to his liking, he added some of the fish oil, mixing it in to make a dark red paint. He poured a small amount of this into 3 other shallow stone dishes. In the first one, he added a lump of yellow. In the second, he sprinkled limestone powder, and in the third, he added charcoal dust. Using a small clean stick for each, he mixed them well, ending up with 3 different colors: a bright orange, a salmon pink, and a dark brown. Teo was truly amazed. He sat quietly and watching. This too was magic, he thought. Graybeard spread out his saucers and began blending shades of yellows, browns, grays, and blacks. Some he mixed with honey, some with boiled fat and clotted blood from the boar. Next, we must make our brushes, he said, as he took a handful of twigs from his pouch and began mashing the ends with a stone until they were soft and ragged. He held up one in the shaft of sunlight beaming through the cave entrance. He turned it around to see Teo. These are small, for painting eyes and fine lines of hair and fur. Then he set out to make larger brushes by tying feathers and boar bristles around the end of a long stick with strings of vegetable fiber. When all the paints and brushes were made, the old man got to his feet. Now, we're ready to paint. Game on! Teo held out the shoulder blade of the horse, while Graybeard poured spots of the colored paints onto its broad white surface. He handed the boy one of the large brushes and pointed to Teo's picture of the rhino, bisons, and mammoths. The boy held his breath. He had never had a brush in his hand before. Which one shall I paint? Whoa, gosh! Graybeard smiled. Go ahead. You're the image maker. You figure it out. Paint the one you like best. The mountains that walk, said Teo. Graybeard nodded. Nice choice. Let's begin. Teo hesitated, glancing at the paints of the shoulder blade, uncertain. You saw the mammoths, said Graybeard. What color were they? Reddish brown. Well, good. Then mix a little black with the red until you have the color that you wish. Teo dipped his brush into the spot of black and then mixed it with the red. He lifted his hand and touched it to the drawing. It was still too light, so he dipped another dab of black. Again his brush touched the drawing. He smiled. It was a deep reddish brown, the color he wanted. He continued to dip and touch. Graybeard watched as Teo repeated the motion again and again and again and again and again. Hamana, hamana, hamana. He reached out and stopped the boy's hand. Are you not painting on the antler or a seashell? You're painting on a wall. So don't dab. Swing the brush with your arm. Graybeard took the brush and began sweeping it across the drawing, following the lines of the mammoth's body. Teo saw the old man's face brighten as he worked, laying on the great swaths of color. He felt the excitement as the picture came to life. Do not be afraid, said Graybeard, his eyes glowing. You can always go over what you don't like. It's called an eraser. Look into it, all right? He gave the brush back to Teo, and the boy tried again. This time, he let his arms go free, swinging the brush across the wall. He mixed the gray with the yellow to fill the light areas around the chest and stomach. He painted dark shadows on the shoulders and the back to adding shadows. He saw his mammoth begin to breathe as he filled in the eyes and the waving trunk. When the painting was finished, Graybeard cracked open a duck egg. He separated the yolk and set them aside. He poured the whites into a clean cockle shell, stirring them with a stick and handing them to Teo. The boy looked puzzled. Um, uh, what's this for? Spread it over the painting, you will see. With a feather brush, Teo washed the egg white over the picture. This time, the mammoth came to light with bright new colors. He stared at it in surprise. This had never been done by his own hand. He smiled. He had never felt so happy. The following morning, Graybeard went off on his mission of mercy and magic. That's an alliteration. He was gone for long periods, but he always returned to the little cavern at the top of the cliff to show the boy more about painting, how to make lights and shadows, where to find reds and yellows, which ones to make colors. Sometimes they sat together on the edge of the cliffs talking. Here they looked up at the night sky, Graybeard pointing out the stars, the first ones that appeared each night. The one that was red and the one that would always lead towards north. Here too Graybeard showed him how to make a fire, told him how to find special herbs, and how to cure sickness. The last time the old man went off on his journey, Teo and Ram walked with him across the valley. When they reached the river, Graybeard turned and said, "Your drawings are better now. They are true and